If you've converted your RSP to a RRIF and you've been taking out only the minimum every single year because your CPP, your OAS, and your TFSA are covering your needs just fine, I want you to hear this clearly. CRA designed that minimum withdrawal schedule, not your financial planner, not for your benefit. CRA set it up so that your RRIF gets taxed on their schedule, not yours, either while you're alive or in a single massive hit the year that you pass away. And the vast majority of Canadian retirees are following that schedule by default, thinking they're being conservative. What they're actually doing is building a tax bill their family will pay after they're gone. Here's the part that will frustrate you. There is a straightforward strategy that produces the same income in your pocket every single year and a dramatically smaller tax bill for CRA at the end. Most Canadians have never been shown it. Hi, I'm Stefano Francesca, Certified Financial Planner Professional at Next Step Wealth Management with IPC Securities Corporation. If you find this helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. It genuinely helps more Canadians find this content. And if something we cover today connects with your situation, if you have a RRIF or you're within 5 to 10 years of converting your RSP, there's a link in the description to book a consultation. This is exactly the planning conversation we have with clients every day. Part 1. How the minimum becomes a tax bomb. The RRIF minimum starts at 5.28% of your account value at age 71. By age 80, it's 6.82. By age 85, it's 8.51. By your late 80s, it crosses 10%. And by age 95, it's 20%. And it applies to whatever balance is sitting in that account, which keeps growing if you're only pulling out the minimum. Here's the trap that most people don't see until it's too late. In your early retirement years, your 60s and your early 70s, your total income is relatively modest. CPP, OAS at 65, some TFSA withdrawals. The marginal tax rate on all of that is manageable. This is the window where pulling money from your RRIF costs you the least in tax. But if you leave the RRIF alone during those years, taking only the minimum because you don't need the money, the balance keeps growing. And then in your late 70s and 80s, the mandatory percentage forces larger and larger withdrawals on a larger and larger balance. Your income spikes, your tax bracket potentially rises, your OAS gets clawed back once your net income crosses the threshold. And when you die, if there's still a significant balance in that RRIF, the entire amount gets added to your income in the year of death. If you have a surviving spouse, it can roll over to them tax deferred, but that doesn't make the tax bill disappear. It defers it. When the second spouse dies, the remaining RRIF lands on that final return with no rollover left. In Alberta, the top marginal rate on income is 48%. That's the rate waiting for whatever is left. The strategy doesn't change for couples. It just means you have 2 opportunities to reduce that liability instead of 1. And the reason most Canadians never see it coming is because of one belief that feels completely reasonable, but is quietly costing them. Part 2, why I don't need the money is the wrong answer. The most common thing I hear from Canadians sitting on a RRIF and taking only the minimum is this: I don't need the money. My other income covers everything. Why would I take out more and pay tax on it now? It is the wrong question. The question is not whether you need the money today. The question is, at what tax rate is this money eventually withdrawn and by whom? Every dollar inside your RRIF will be taxed. It's a tax deferral strategy. That is not in doubt. The only variable is when it gets taxed and at what rate. If you pull it now in a year where your income is lower, you pay a lower marginal rate. The money is yours. If you leave it, it grows. And every dollar of that growth is a larger taxable event waiting to happen, either in a high tax bracket year or on the final tax return when there's no room to manage it. The RRIF is not a gift. It's a tax liability that is growing every single year you leave it untouched. The only question that matters is whether you pay that tax liability on your terms or CRA's. Which brings us to the move most Canadians in this position have never been shown. Part 3, the strategy. Pay it now on your terms. Most people assume that withdrawing more than the RRIF minimum means paying more tax. That's only true if you're not redirecting that money somewhere smarter. In the years where your total income is below the OAS clawback threshold, currently $95,323 in 2026, there is room to pull additional income from your RRIF at a manageable tax rate. That room exists right now. Every year you don't lose it, you lose it. The strategy? Withdraw more than the minimum in years where you have that room. Then redirect the after-tax proceeds into your TFSA. The $7,000 annual contribution limit, plus any unused room you've accumulated up to $109,000 in 2026, gives you meaningful capacity to do this every year. What you are doing is paying tax on RRIF money now at a rate you can control and converting it into a completely tax-free asset. The TFSA grows tax-free, it comes out tax-free, it never affects your OAS, it never triggers a clawback, and at death, it does not generate a tax bill. It transfers to your estate or your beneficiaries intact. The RRIF shrinks, the TFSA grows, the tax liability you are quietly carrying gets paid on your timeline instead of landing in full on your final tax return. For couples, pension income splitting adds another layer. Allocating up to 50% of eligible RRIF income to the lower income spouse reduces the household's combined tax rate on every dollar you pull, meaning more of what money moves into the TFSA stays there. Part 4, same income, very different outcome. Here's what makes this strategy so compelling and so easy to miss if nobody puts the two scenarios side by side. Two Canadians, identical RRIF balances, identical income needs, identical lifestyle and retirement. One takes the minimum every year, the other withdraws more than the minimum and redirects the excess into a TFSA. Same money in their pockets every single year, but across a retirement that runs 25 to 30 years, the tax picture at the end is completely different. The one who took only the minimum spent those decades allowing a growing tax liability to compound inside a registered account. The mandatory withdrawals in their late 70s pushed them into higher tax brackets. The OAS clawback took a portion of what they've earned. And at death, the remaining RRIF balance, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, landed as income in a single year at the highest rate available. The one who had a strategy spent those same years methodically converting that liability into tax-free wealth. The RRIF was smaller by the time the high tax bracket years arrived. The TFSA was larger, more flexible, and fully available to the family without a tax bill attached. Neither of them spent more than they needed. Neither of them changed their lifestyle. The only difference was whether they had a drawdown plan or just a default. Part 5, the window most Canadians leave unused. There is one more opportunity inside this that most people never use, and the window closes the moment you turn 71. You do not have to wait until age 71 to convert your RSP to a RRIF. You can convert your RSP to a RRIF at any time and begin strategic withdrawals above the minimum before the mandatory schedule forces your hand. Converting at 65, for example, unlocks the pension income tax credit, a non-refundable federal credit on up to $2,000 of eligible RRIF income. The federal savings is around $280 annually, plus a provincial credit on top. Small, but it's available every year from age 65 onwards. And it stacks for both spouses. And it gives you a 6-year head start on drawdowns from the RRIF at the lowest tax rates you'll probably see in retirement, before CPP, OAS, and mandatory minimums all arrive at the same time in your early 70s and start stacking on top of one another. The window between 65 and 71 is the most tax-efficient withdrawal window in most Canadians' retirement. It's also the most wasted, not because people make a decision to ignore it, but because nobody told them it was there. The RRIF minimum is a floor CRA built to trigger taxable income. Following it by default means you've handed CRA the decision about when your registered money gets taxed and at what rate. If your CPP, your OAS, and TFSA are covering your income needs and you're only pulling the minimum from your RRIF, you're likely sitting on a growing tax liability that will hit either you in a higher tax bracket or your estate in the year that you die. In Alberta, that means up to 48 cents on every dollar. The alternative is drawing down more than the minimum in years where you have room, redirecting that money into your TFSA and paying that liability at a rate you choose, not a rate CRA assigns. Same income in your pocket, less for CRA, more for your family. That is not aggressive planning. That is what a proper drawdown strategy looks like. And the window to build it is open right now, not after the mandatory withdrawals have been already climbing. If you have a RRIF or you're within a few years of converting your RSP and you want to understand exactly how much you should be withdrawing, when and where it should go, click the link in the description to book a consultation. We build these strategies for Canadians every day as part of our Next Step Wealth Management service, and we'd be glad to talk to you about it. Let's take the next step.